Excel 2007 charts. Charts are a fantastic way to add some visual zing into your spreadsheet, but even better than that, your audience will understand the point of your data much more quickly if it's in this graphical format instead of having to read through column after column, row after row to really understand who's the best performer or what sells the most or, hey, what should I be worrying about as far as these numbers go? So we are going to talk about embedding a chart right there on an active worksheet, inserting an entirely separate sheet that has only a chart on it. There are over 75 different types of charts just that come with the installation of Excel. And of course, as we move through and work on these charts, we're also going to be formatting our charts, changing the legends, maybe changing the context, adding some labels so that our audience can really understand what it is they're looking at. Here I have my sales team performance. I have all of my sales personnel broken out by territory, their quarterly sales, and then I also have subtotals for all of my territories. I can see my east, north, west, south, and then the total of all of my quarters for all of my territories. Well, I just want to see a chart of my east territory sales. So step one to create a chart is to select your range. Here I've got everything selected. Step two, click on the command. It's on your Insert tab on your ribbon. Here's my chart area. I'm going to just go with a simple column chart. I'll choose a 2D column chart, but notice I have all sorts of different options. I could even go into the All Chart Types dialog box from here or from up here. I'll choose 2D, and now it's embedded within my active spreadsheet. I have my dollar values. It goes up to 45,000. It says East. That's definitely redundant. It says their names, and it says the quarters. That's the reason why I made sure to select the headers in my range. Otherwise, it just would have said Series 1 or something like that. This is an embedded chart. I know it's embedded. I have it selected. I see Chart Tools, and now I have my Design tab, my Layout tab, and my Format tab. If I were to click outside of this chart, I no longer have that chart information. Now it's back again just with a single click. If I were to click outside of my chart, actually let's point out Ann Wilson, $40,000. She did fantastic in Q3. Let's take a look at Ann Wilson's Q3 sales. Whoops, I need to move this out of the way. Ann Wilson, Q3, $40,000. Isn't it easier to look at it as a chart? It's dynamically tied. So I can change this value here and I'll see it update here. And by the way, my chart goes up to 45,000 just because it's stepping up at $5,000 increments, and it had to go up large enough to accommodate for my largest value. If I change her $40,000 worth of sales to $15,354 and hit enter, now I see it went way down for her, and also my chart has updated because it has no need to go up to $40,000. Well, I mentioned that we don't want to see East in there over and over and over again. Let's make a new chart. We need the practice anyway. I'll press delete on my keyboard and it will remove the chart. All right, starting from scratch, I'm going to select the range. I don't want to select East in there, so I'll press Control on my keyboard, which allows me to add to that range I already selected. I have non-contiguous cells selected, but they all will be data that makes up that chart. That was step one. Step two, go back to the Insert ribbon. This time I can create a bar chart, and I'll create a cylinder chart that has stacked my values. Here I go. It looks a little bit different. It does make a little bit better use of my real estate here because I don't have quite as many bars. All of Susan's information, for example, is together, and I can see by the color breakout that she did a lot better in Q1 than she did in Q4. I love that I can hover my mouse over this and see actually that label, and it tells me the real value, 12,546 she did for Q4. I promised you I was going to show you how to insert your chart as its own sheet. I'm going to press delete on my keyboard again to remove that. I'll keep my range selected, but this time I want my own sheet to work with. I need to insert a chart sheet. It's just like inserting any other sheet. I make sure to right-click on a Sheet tab, choose Insert, and then I get to choose what type of sheet, a regular old worksheet or a chart. I'll choose OK. Now I have a new tab. I was on Sales Numbers. Now I'm on Chart 8, but I'll call that East Territory Sales. Enter. Now, true, it just gave me this regular old looking bar chart. I can always go now back up to Design, and I can change my chart type. This opens up my chart type dialog box. When I was originally creating my charts in the other way, I could have chosen to go into this dialog box when I chose other chart types, but I didn't. I just went with pull down menus. It has a breakout of all the different charts here. Of course, I could scroll down. Notice there are many of these. And of course, depending on the type of data you have, there are better charts to display that. So I couldn't really do a pie chart because I have too much data. An area chart would be hard to read. A scatter diagram really wouldn't make sense for what I'm trying to display, nor would a stock or a donut. I'll show you a bubble chart, but a radar chart might be hard to read for this as well. I have bubbles selected. I'll choose OK, and here we have it. It's beautiful, isn't it? But as far as I'm concerned, I would have a very hard time reading this information. So I'm going to go to Change Chart Type. I'm going to change it back to a column chart, and I'm going to go with this type of column chart here. I could set this as my default chart if I often made these column cylinder charts. Also, I could add some templates or manage some templates or really create my own if I really wanted to use the same look and feel for everything. I'll choose OK, and now we're back to this cylinder chart. Let's look at chart styles first. By clicking on these buttons, I have a lot to choose from. A little bit of a difference. I have some shadows down there. If I was printing to a black and white printer, I could tell here that if I did print it out, I would be able to see the difference because there are varying shades of gray there. I'll go ahead and stick with this chart style here. I could change the layout if I wanted to. If I click on that, now what I've done is I've added a chart title, and I see the actual dollar values above each one of these data labels. But note, I don't have the y-axis anymore. So again, this is something that you'll get used to that you may or may not want to use. Chart title doesn't tell me that much, so I can select this text box and I can type in there that I want to call this East Territory Sales, and I'll hit enter. Whoops. Actually, I'll click outside of it or press escape on my keyboard to have that. I have this legend here that I could resize if I wanted to. Each one of these are their own separate items as well that I could work with. I could also notice how these are my quarterly breakouts and these are my salespeople breakouts. Well, I could change that. Before I do that, though, I'm going to resize these. I can right-click on them, and I can choose font. From font, I'm able now to bump up the size of the font. Now I'm able to read it a little bit better here. And then same goes with this legend. I can right-click on it. I can choose font, but I do have this little hover bar. It went way up above your window, but I can change that to 12. Now I can read it just a little bit better. If I wanted to flip-flop this and have my people represent different colors and my quarters be what I see at the x-axis, I could certainly do that. This is here, again, on the Design tab, but it's called Switch Row and Column. Now I see my quarters, and I can take a look really easily and say, oh, blue, that was the highest. Who's the blue? Oh, Nancy Wilson. She did fantastic in Q1. I might want to resize that so I can see information because actually that was Larry that had that really good quarter. I'm going to go to the Layout tab now. From here, I can work with my legend. This actually shows me what I have selected. Notice as I move through here and make different selections, it updates with those. I could just click on them also. This is the back wall. This is the series Nancy Wilson. If I wanted to just format Nancy's information, I could do so. I could change the color. If I wanted to, I could give her a gradient fill, make it rainbow colored for her, and now that's updated. So this is something that can be kind of nice if you are printing to a black and white printer, because if you wanted to, you could actually give these different textures or different pictures on them, which would allow you to really be able to differentiate among the different bars when you do print it out, or also for your own sake for the different, the visual appeal you'll get on the screen. I could even change the material that these items look like. By selecting the material, you can tell that it looks just a little bit different. It's this dark blue bar. If I choose translucent, you can barely see it. If I choose that, it's actually just the outline of it. It doesn't really look as neat as it looks here. It doesn't look shiny and metal. If I can go back to standard the way it was in the beginning. But notice you can really make large changes in the way. And you can always do reset, which sets it back to the way it was in the beginning. So what I'm getting at here, big picture, is you can select the item that you want to modify either by clicking on it or by making that selection in this drop-down area, and then you can format that selection. If you make it all crazy though, you can always choose reset to match style. That style would be this item on the design tab. I'll go back to the layout tab and show you. You can also change your chart title this way. I could center it to overlay. I could have it above the chart, which is where it was already. I have my axis titles as well. When I click on this, my primary horizontal axis title, do I want none or do I want title below the axis? I can now edit this to say sales by quarter. And I can go into my primary vertical axis and have my vertical title be dollars. And of course, I can also right-click on these items, change the text if I want to, and I can even choose Edit Text if I wanted to change that data right there. I'm fine with the way it is right here. That could probably be a little bit larger. If I choose Font, that allows me to make the changes without it going off of the screen for you. That looks good to me. You really have all those various text commands that you have at your fingertips in all of the other Office applications. Data labels. I don't have any data labels. Would I like to show them? I don't know. I think that that makes it nice, but sometimes if you were to print this out, it might make it difficult to read these items. So I could choose not to have these labels, or I could go into more data label options. And look at that. I can change the number. Maybe I want to see this as a percentage. Maybe I want to change the way that it looks or how it's aligned. The data table will show me the source data for this visual representation of my data. No, I don't want to see it there. It takes up too much space. My axes, I could choose to show the axis without the labeling. I could choose to show the right to left axes, and now it's updated the way that this is displayed. Perhaps I'd like to see major grid lines. Perhaps I'd like to see major grid lines vertically as well. Perhaps I'd like to see minor grid lines. It's all up to you. You really can make some serious editing changes here. I could even change the way that the chart wall looks or the chart floor here. Shadowed or not shadowed. I do have another tab. It's the Format tab here, which really allows me to make some more changes. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see this information. And I can make a selection. Again, I've got Nancy Wilson, and here I can go back and choose how I'd like this to look. Maybe I want it to be brown. Do I want an outline or not? It depends on the type of chart that you have, again, and whether you're printing or not. Some of these won't display all that well with how small this chart is, and some of them will not make a difference if you're going to be printing these out. I have my shape styles here. Oop, that's a little bit too close to red. It can be a little bit overwhelming when you get in here, so I hope what you're gathering from this is that the key is know what data you want to represent, select the item within the chart, and then choose whatever formatting item you want. And you can always do reset to match style to bring it on back to how you were. If I decided I didn't want those, I could right-click on them and choose delete. I could also go back to my layout tab and choose no data labels. Oh, I'd have to select the right area. Plot area, data labels, none. Let's go ahead now and create a pie chart. When you're creating a pie chart, you have to think about it a little bit differently because you're looking at a percentage of the whole. So you can only compare a couple pieces of information. Like if I were to have all the salespeople and all the quarters, it wouldn't be able to really figure out, well, what percentage are we looking for? What the quarters were of the whole, or what Nancy was versus Ann versus Martin. So let's go ahead and just select Nancy's quarterly information. Step 1, select the range, go to the Insert tab, and we'll choose a pie chart. We have these to choose from. I'll just choose a regular old 3D pie chart. Looks pretty good. It's embedded. Just like before, I have these 3 tabs. I can change the design of it, and it is embedded. I would like to move this to another sheet. This is another way to do this. I can choose New Sheet, and I'll call this Nancy's Quarterly Sales. I spelled it correctly? Okay, now I'm on a new sheet called Nancy's Quarterly Sales. I see the breakout of the legend. Of course, I could increase the size of that so it's a little bit easier to read. And I see the breakout. I might even like to go to the layout and do some data labels. I'd like to see, how about data labels and position with best fit, or I could even go to more data labels. I'd like to show the leader lines, and I'd like to see percentages and values, and I'd like to see that as currency. Actually, it's got currency and percent, so that might mess it up. It is. I can see I've got dollar signs there. I'll just choose general, and it'll do dollar signs and that. And let's see, fill, that's fine. I don't really need, that doesn't make sense because I'm adjusting the label, so I'll choose close. But I am going to right-click on these and choose to make them size 28. Now I see a little bit different there. And if I wanted to, I could drag them to be a little bit more on top of that item there. All right, so here's Nancy's information. I'm looking at a 3D pie chart, so I can select it, I can right-click, and I can choose 3D rotation. And that gives me a little bit of play. If I do it up, I'm kind of rotating it a little bit while changing the perspective. I can make my y-axis up a little bit. I can change my x-axis. It's really just rotating and adjusting the way that it looks on the screen. I can always reset it back to the way it was if I had changed the distance from the ground, which was grayed out, I could go back to default rotation, which takes it back here. And now I do see my leader lines a little bit. I'll choose close, and you can see, it's okay. It's okay. If I'd like to, I can go and insert a text box. Then actually, I could type on here, good job, Nancy. And I can select that, move it around. I can get in there, select the text. I can change the size of the text as well. So hopefully you're seeing this goes with the same flow. Select what you want to make the change to. Either right-click on it to see what it is you can do at that specific point in time, or go back to Format and you can format the selection, or work with other items. Maybe I want a quick style on this. That changes the way that it looks. Here are other quick style items. I can have a glow, kind of a red glow to it. Ooh, I'm just wrecking this pie chart. To prove my point, I'm going to go back to sales numbers, and I'm going to show you what a pie chart looks like if you have too much data involved. I selected my range. I'll go to Insert. I'll go to Pie Chart. I'll just choose a 2D pie chart here. And it says, I'm so confused. What are you looking for? I've got salespeople for you for Q1. That's the best I can do. I can't do salespeople Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. Let's do one more pie chart. I have my territory, east, north, south, west. Well, I'd like to look at just we haven't done anything with our south, have we? Let's make a pie chart out of that. I'll do Insert, Pie Chart. Maybe I'd like to see two little pie charts here, so I can see my breakout regarding my south total. What it's done here is it has my Q1, it has my Q2, and then here it's combined my Q3 and Q4 here. My Q3 and Q4 have been broken out into a little mini pie chart. I'm going to delete this pie chart. Whoops. I'm going to delete this pie chart. And let's make another one. I still have my range selected. I'll choose Insert, Pie, and let's go ahead and choose this one right here. And it's broken it out. So automatically, my audience is going to notice this is the biggest, and it's right here. These are all separate pieces. If I wanted just to move this green one, I could drag it. I could drag this. I could put it all back together if I wanted to. Or I could just call out this one. Hey, everybody, Q1 is small. Why in the world is Q1 small? Let's go back to Layout, insert a text box, and say, what happened in, enter, Q1? Wouldn't that be great to get this from your boss? Am I in trouble? Sorry about that. I'll go ahead and choose delete to delete this chart as well. The last thing I want to show you is the quickest shortcut ever. Again, step one, you select your range, and then you can use the keyboard command F11, that function 11 key. F11, bam, new chart, new sheet. And I can, of course, change the style however I'd like it, add a label if I want to, change where the legend is, do whatever it is that I need to do in order to make this a chart that is easily understood by my audience. We covered it. We embedded a chart. That means that that chart is right there on the same active worksheet tab, but of course you could always move it or cut it and paste it elsewhere. We inserted a chart sheet. It's right-clicking on a sheet tab to insert a chart instead of inserting a typical worksheet. We changed the chart type. You saw how many charts are in there, both two-dimensional as well as three-dimensional. If you add a three-dimensional chart, you can always modify the orientation to make it a little bit easier to read. And then we spent some time in there. We went to the Design tab, the Layout tab, and the Format tab. Each one of those allowed us to choose which object in the chart we wanted to modify, and then gave us a whole slew of commands that aided us in giving our charts some visual appeal. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.